Now, Human Rights Day is celebrated annually around the world on 10th of December every year. The day was chosen to honor the United Nations General Assembly's adoption and proclamation on 10th of December 1948 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. This is the first global enunciation of human rights and one of the first major achievements of the new United Nations. The day is normally marked both by high-level political conferences and meetings and by cultural events and exhibitions dealing with human rights issues. Many governmental and non-governmental organizations active in the human rights field also scheduled special events to commemorate today, as do many civil and social cause organizations. And let's go back to our earlier story on the Human Rights Day, where we have our guest joining us, human rights advocate Inibehe Effiong. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC News On. There have been issues bordering on human rights across the world. Name them. But then where are we in Nigeria in addressing issues bordering on human rights?
Thank you. Well, the truth of the matter is that today, Nigeria as a country has quite a lot to do in human rights. The trend across the globe. Countries are paying closer attention to matters of human rights beyond the conventional human rights, fundamental right to life, and so on. We are now having conversations about environmental justice, about climate change, which is also related to human rights. But here in Nigeria, we are still struggling with the very basic things. People are still being killed by law enforcement agencies without redress. People are still being arrested and detained beyond the period allowed by law. You look at the killing that just happened in Sokoto, where people were burned in a vehicle. So these kind of things are going on under a climate of intimidation without access to a free press. The media is still being intimidated. The right to protest is still being denied of Nigerians. They continue to be constant degradation of key institutions of state, including the judiciary. All this has bearing on the human rights climate in the country. So for me, we are very, very far from achieving anything significant in terms of human rights in the country. Indeed, even the National Human Rights Commission has more or less become a toothless bulldog. The National Human Rights Commission has not been able to discharge the mandate for which it was set up. And for me, this is unfortunate. This is unacceptable. Something really has to be done urgently to retrace this very unfortunate step, that trajectory that we are going as a country.
If it appears to you that you're not satisfied with the achievement of the Human Rights Commission in Nigeria, well, one of the events that shaped 2020 rather, talk about the NSAS protests against police brutality, talk about the Hong Kong protests, talk about the Black Lives Matters across the world. Are you optimistic that there will come someday that there will be no issue on human rights? Mr. Effiong, if you can, did you get my last question?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right, go ahead. Did you get my last question? Let me quickly ask you again. 2020 we had the NSAS protest against police brutality. We have the Hong Kong protest. We have Black Lives Matters. Everywhere in the world. Are you optimistic that there will be some day that there won't be any issues that we'll be talking, saying that these issues are bordering on human rights, where everyone will have their rights protected and not infringed upon?
Not in the immediate future. The signs that are today clearly indicate that the country is going backward in terms of human rights. Of course, I agree that in terms of laws, in terms of the legal framework, Nigeria has done well. You have the fundamental right under Chapter 4 of the Constitution. You have the Child Rights Act that has been passed at the national level, domesticated at the states. You have the Anti-Torture Act of 2017, and several other legislations that have been put in place, but these laws are not being implemented. We still have a cycle of impunity pervading the entire country. So if you're asking me whether we will get to a point where human rights will really be something that is taken seriously, I am confident it's not going to be under the current government. I don't know what will happen in the government that will come after this. But the indication today is that those who are in power in this country today, from the federal to the state level, are not interested in respecting or enforcing the rights of Nigerians. Look at what is happening. People go to court, they get judgments, those judgments are respected, they are not enforced by law enforcement agencies. You have a situation where people are detained in disobedience of court orders.
Right, Mr. Effiong, let me quickly butt in because of our limited time. You, as a rights advocate, what would you advocate in this regard to ensure that all rights are protected and they are delivered the way they are supposed to?
Yes, of course. It is for the media and the human rights community to do more. I agree that there is a lot to be done to advance human rights in the country.
Well, right. Speaking with human rights advocate Inibehe Effiong there, your point was actually made. Thank you so much for your insight.